Hello, Namaste. On behalf of Sri Hingulambika Education Society's Ayurvedic Medical College, Hospital and Research Center, I would like to wish a happy Doctor's Day. My dear doctors, doctor is an English word derived from Latin word docere. In Latin, docere means knowledge. Hence, celebration of Doctor's Day is worship of the knowledge, Jnanam Upasva. We know the word therapeutics. Therapeutics is an English word derived from a Latin word therapeutae, and this Latin word therapeutae is derived from the word Theraputta, which is a Pali language. In Pali, Theraputta means Bodha Bhikshu or a person with full knowledge, and this Theraputta is derived from a Sanskrit word Sthavira. In Sanskrit, the meaning of Sthavira is knowledge. What I want to say is, doctors means the persons with complete knowledge. In France, a document is there which says, in Europe, who wants to prepare mercurial preparations has to prepare compulsorily under the supervision of an Indian physician. So, all these documents and other things says India is a motherland of or is the root of medical science. Now, in Hingulambika Ayurvedic Medical College, the Department of Kaumaryavrita has organized this seminar. My dear doctors, Indians are basically Shruti Parampara people. Shruti means we are very good listeners. So, that is why in Indian culture, we celebrate Shravana. In Shravana Masa, number of seminars, webinars related to spiritual were organized. The reason is Indians will remember whatever they will listen. In Kaumaryavrita, department of our college has organized this seminar with a title of on Prana Pratyagamana. So, we know let the knowledge come from all the sides, and what to do to improve our knowledge or to upgrade. It says Satatadhyanam, Vadaha and Paratantra Avalokanam. Studying of allied subject is a tool to improve our knowledge. Hence, the Department of Kaumaryavrita has organized this seminar or webinar on Prana Pratyagamana. Here mainly, apart from our Ayurvedic scholars from Kaumaryavrita, two scholars, one is HOD of pediatric department in reputed medical college and medical officer in a St. John's hospital. Both, all the three persons, one is from medical hospital, one is from medical college and from Ayurvedic institution. These three people are sharing their knowledge mainly on practical aspects. So, I request all the, and I hope all the visitors who are all attending this seminar, they will improve their knowledge by attending this webinar. Thank you one and all.
Hello everyone, I Dr. Veena Jiglur, Assistant Professor, Department of Kaumaryavrita, Sri Hingulambika Ayurvedic Medical College, Kalburgi. Behalf of our Balaroga department, we have taken an initiative of integrated approach of the ancient methods and the today's science. Henceforth, we are going to present the audio-visual series of topics. Pranasedam vase sarvam trideve yat pratishthitam matena putran rakshajasva Shrishcha Prajnamscha Videhina iti. That is, whatever exists in three words is all under the control of prana, and prana protects us as mother protects her son, gives us in affluence and intelligence. Owing to importance of prana, that is breath, we have started the series of Prana Pratyagamana, that is resuscitation, adding breaths in critical condition. To demonstrate this, we have two eminent personalities with us, Dr. Mallarao Malle sir and Dr. Gachinmani NG sir. To begin with, Dr. Mallarao Malle sir is a medical officer at St. John Urban Primary Health Center, Kalburgi, Sir was in charge of Red Cross Society Kalburgi unit, and sir has conducted many first aid programs as a trainer. In this video, he will demonstrate the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, that is CPR.
Today, we will discuss about the CPR program. Whenever the patient becomes unconscious, at that time, if there is no signs of respiration or circulation, at that time we give this CPR, that is called as cardiopulmonary resuscitation. But before that one, we have to know whether the person is totally unconscious or not, because we have to test his breathing, his circulation. So before touching the patient, first we should know, is there any danger for the person who is doing this particular first aid work? That's what we say, DRAB, DRS doctors, what we say, is there any danger for self? Before doing all these things, first we should see that is there any danger for me? The person who is doing first aid, he should know if there is any danger, we should not go to that area. That is the reason why we see D stands for danger for three people, one for the self, another for the casualty. If the surroundings situation is not good, in that circumstances we have to shift the patient from there and we have to give the artificial respiration. That's why, is there any danger for self? Is there any danger for the casualty? Or is there any danger for the other people who are surrounding that area? That also we have to see before doing all these things. First we have to see the response of the patient. If there is no respiration, how to identify it? By one, before that one we should say A, B, C, what we say like that. Airway we have to check before giving any this thing to the patient. How to check the airway? Because airway is the prominent things. If the airway is clear, then only the air will pass, otherwise it will not pass. That's why the simple test what we do for the airway checking, we tilt the chin like this. When we tilt the chin, the airway become straight. For example, this is the area, it is a L shape. When you just turn your head like this one, it will become straight line. So whenever you want to check the air, you have to tilt the chin, then you have to see, is there any obstruction in the mouth? If there is any obstruction, you have to remove it first. So clear the airway, that is the first thing that what you have to do before doing this CPR. If the airway is blocked, whatever the amount of the CPR what you are going to do, it is a waste. That's why first thing is the checking the airway. After checking the airway, then you have to see the breathing. Is there any breathing? Usually it will be done if there is no breathing. How to check that one? The simple technique, one is to look. You have to look the chest area whether there is any movement. So whenever you are checking the air, that breathing, when you are looking for it, you should not look down and see the movement of the chest. When you look down, naturally there will be some movement you observe. That's why no one should check the breathing, that is the chest movement, by looking down. Always it should be done with a parallel this thing. You have to see like this, whether there is any movement of the chest area. If the movement of the chest area is there, the breathing is positive. That's why the second thing you have to check the movement of the chest by parallel, like that you have to see. Then listen, you have to keep your ear in front of the mouth and see is there any sound coming because of the movement of the air. That's what we say, that is listen. You have to listen, is there any air entering inside or coming outside. Then you have to feel, then you have to keep your hand in front of the nose, whether there is any, the air coming out and touching your finger. So after that only you have to confirm there is no breathing. So 3 steps you have to see: look, listen and feel. After doing these things, then you will confirm there is no respiration. At the same time, is there any circulation is there or not? How to examine the circulation? Number 1, all of you know, the examination of the pulse indicates the circulatory movement. If the pulse is intact, it means that the heart is functioning properly. First you have to see the radial artery. Afterwards, if you don't see the radial artery, then you have to go for the carotid artery. This is the sternocleidomastoid muscle. If you put the finger here, at that time you can see the carotid artery. Carotid artery is a very prominent artery where you can see the pulse very correctly. Even if you don't see pulse in the carotid artery, it means that the heart is also not functioning. So at this moment, because the 2 things are not here, one is there is no circulation, another there is no respiration. If this continues, the oxygen supplying to the brain is ceased. If the brain does not get the oxygen, it will not function. So what is the maximum time the brain can sustain without oxygen? The brain can sustain about 7 minutes time without oxygen. If the time exceeds 7 minutes, then the death of the brain cells occurs. When death of the brain cell occurs, at that moment we cannot do anything. So keeping in this mind, whenever we are giving CPR, it should be done within 7 minutes. This is a point to be noted. If you do after 10 minutes or 13 minutes, there is no use, because already the brain is damaged. It is once the brain is damaged, that is a change is irreversible. We cannot bring back to the normal stage of the brain. So when you notice, there are previously what we are teaching is the artificial breathing. Whenever there is no breathing, at that time we were teaching artificial breathing. There are several types of artificial breathing. Usually nowadays we don't use it. Some of the methods, such as Holger-Nielsen method, Schaefer method, Sylvester method, these are the methods. In the olden days they were using these methods. So probably you might have seen in some of the cases where the person is drowned, at that time we press his chest and other things. So there are, it is in this position, when we are doing in this position, that is called as a Holger-Nielsen. If you are pressing on the upper side of the chest, it is called as a Holger-Nielsen method. When your chest and below, then it is called as a Schaefer. When in the supine position you are doing, that is called as the Sylvester method. So at that previously what they were doing, they were taking their own, elbows, and they're pressing the chest area to improve the, respiration. These are the methods in the olden days they were using. But nowadays, if there is no this thing, we directly go for the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So how to do this one? Is a very, very fundamental this thing, because if you press more, the bones may break and once again the problems may be created. Where exactly you have to do the CPR? So this is the chest area. There is a one notch. Everybody can see this notch. This is called as a suprasternal notch. It is called as a suprasternal notch. It is the sternum. This bone is a sternum. The above this one is a notch is there. it is with each and everybody. Suprasternal notch we can visualize in almost all the persons. There is one more notch in the epigastric region here. One more notch here. That also is visualized in each and every person. Usually whenever we are doing, if the shirts or anything is there, the dresses are there, you remove the dress or you tear the dress and you visualize the things. Because if the dresses are there, because the primary this thing is lose the tight dresses. For example, if a female is there wearing a bra, at that time when we give the artificial respiration, it may not respond properly. Or if some person is having a very tight, belt or anything, such time also it is very difficult to give the CPR. That's why whatever the tight dresses are there, that has to be loosened first. After that one, when you know these two notches, so here is one notch, here is another notch. You have to find the center of it. So when you put these two fingers like this one, you will get center of it. So this is the point from where you have to give the CPR. So center of the two notches, one the epigastric notch, another is the suprasternal notch. So in between these two, when you see this, mark this particular point, almost it is in the middle of the sternum. At that time what you have to do is you keep your heel of the hand. This is called as the heel of the hand. You have to keep the heel of the hand on the center of the point which you have located. Now understood this particular point. So afterwards what you have to do is interlock the fingers. You have to interlock the fingers. Where is now your hand? Your hand is on the sternum. Because most of the people what they do, when we show like this one, doctor has compressed the chest. That's why they keep anywhere. For example, the heart is on the left side of the chest. Some people what they do, they compress on the left side. When they compress on the left side, because the sternum is a flat bone, it is a strong bone, it never breaks. For example, if you put your fingers on the ribs, when you press hardly, suddenly the ribs may break. When the ribs break, the problems may start. That's why always you should remember that your hand must be on the sternum, not on the ribs. The heel of the hand must be on the sternum. So when you interlock this one, the hand must be very straight, very straight. Then you have to press the chest area in such a way that it should go down 1.5 to 2 inches down. That is the one point you should remember. Because if you press very slowly, it may not compress the heart. Because the heart is, here is the sternum in front, behind the backbone. The backbone which is there, behind that one. In between these two bones, when you press, the heart is compressed. Otherwise, if you press on other side of any part of the body, the heart may not be compressed properly. That's why. So, measure this one, make the point and keep here, and then what you have to do, press hardly. You should go 1.5 inch to 2 inch down. So, like this. So much of strength you have to apply and you have to press in that way. Then only the heart is compressed, otherwise it will not compress. Why we compress the heart? When you compress the heart, the blood will rush into the brain and so the death of the brain cells is avoided. To make sure the blood supply to the vital organs, particularly brain, we do this particular maneuver. So when you are compressing, how many times you have to compress? This is the point now. How much of time is required to compress? These are the things one should be very, very careful. Because we are pressing for 30 times. Regularly when we are pressing, we have to press for 30 times. You have to count the numbers like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So you can count fast also, but you should not do. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you should not do like this one. Another one is 1, 2, 3. Like this also you should not do. Why you should not do fast? Why you should not do slow? Because whenever the heart contracts, 72 times per minute. So you have to give in the same way, because that what we saw as once the heart is compressed, you should allow to relax. That is a recoiling of the heart. We say recoiling of the heart. Once you press the heart, it is pressed now, give sufficient time to relax and then once again compress. If you do fast, you are not allowing the heart to relax. So once again the circulation is impaired. For example, if you are doing very slowly, there is no purpose behind it, because it beats about 72 times per minute. That's why you have to follow that particular speed, then only the heart and the brain, everything will get the sufficient and proper blood supply. So at the time the pressing is over, now we have to take care of the breathing also, because how many times you have to breathe. Usually we keep such a plastic bag on the mouth, so that the saliva and other things will not, stick to our mouth, because we are also human being. Sometimes if you may find some problem here, that's why usually such device is kept. But you may not get this device whenever the patient is there, because you are not having any sorts of things in your hand. At that time you can do, nothing will happen. But if any, mesh like cloth, that is for example our bandage cloth is there, you can put the bandage cloth on it. Otherwise also nothing will happen, because you are doing temporarily, you are not doing any permanently. That's why if this is not available, don't worry. At that time we have to keep our mouth to mouth. That's what we call as a mouth to mouth respiration, mouth to nose respiration. These are the two things you should know. One is directly from mouth to mouth. If you are not able to open the mouth. In some patient we may not be able to open the mouth. At that time what we do, we give from mouth to nose. We blow the air in the nose, so that the air will circulate in the respiratory system. Because both the air is also necessary for our life. So now what you have to do is, you turn the chin like this one, upward. Understood this one? So then what we have to do is, if this is there, it is all right. If it is not there, then close the nose. Why you should close the nose? Because when you blow the air into the mouth, the air may come from the nose. So there is no point. That's why what we have to do is now, close the nose, take the deep breath, be ready, because a lot of amount of the oxygen is there and the air is there in your body, and you have to blow with force. For example, now I will show. Because usually 500 ml of the air, we throw it out for every breathing. 500 ml we will take, and 500 ml we this thing. When you blow normally, it is 1.5 liters. So when you blow in this way with a forceful blowing, about 2.5 liters of the air is pushed inside. So how much of air is pushing now? 2.5 liters of the air is pushed inside. So normally we take 500 ml. 5 times more the air we introduce into the body. This air, which when we breathe out, it is less in oxygen, because the atmospheric air is 21% oxygen is there. Out of this 21%, we only use 3 to 4%. The expired air which is there, it contains even 16 to 17% of the oxygen. Even that 16 to 17% of the oxygen is sufficient to save his life. Not necessarily the 21% oxygen which is there in the environment, because when we blow out, that percentage of the oxygen is only 16 to 17%. That 16% to 17% is sufficient for this particular person. That's why you have to blow the air. How many times? Only 2. So how much of the air is pushed inside now? About 5 liters of the air is pushed out in this particular procedure. Or if you are if the chest, cavity is smaller or anything, about 4 liters of air, 100% it goes inside. So twice, once again I will show. Close the air, close the nose, nostrils, blow the air by upward chin. Because the air passage becomes straight, all the air which is there, it enters into the lung. Over. Then once again you have to make 30. So 2 times the air is blown and 30 times we compress the chest area. This we call as a 1 cycle. This we call as a 1 cycle. Like this, you have to repeat this cycle for 5 times. So this 5 times when you repeat, what is the timing that is allowed is within 2 minutes you have to do 5 times. Within 2 minutes you have to blow the air 10 times and 150 times chest compression. So it makes almost all per minute 75. That is the heart rate, which is equal to heart rate. And also the air what we blow, that is a 5 times. Every time 5 liters means almost all about 10 liters of the air is gone inside. So that is sufficient to save his life. Once the life is saved, he may live the normal life. But this has to be done immediately. If there is any delay, that is what is called as the golden time. As and how you delay the timing, the recovery is less. So the estimated this thing by the CPR, how many people are rescuing? According to the American Journal, 38% of the people can be revived only by the artificial, this is CPR. Only by this phenomena. It doesn't require any, costly instruments or anything. It can be done anywhere at any time. Anywhere you live, even in the top of the mountain or in the ground, wherever you are there, you can do this one. That's why this method is very, very important to save the life of a person. So everyone should know this particular procedure. If you know procedure, when the person is unconscious, if we apply this particular procedure of CPR, then you are going to save the life. Because in the hospital, you might have seen all the patient with all the facilities in the hospital also. When the death occurs, the doctors, they go for CPR. Because this is the last resort to try or to save the person. We have seen so many patients, about 38% of the people can be saved by this procedure alone. That's why CPR is most important. When it has to be done, when there is no respiration, there is no circulation, at that time you have to do. To give an example, for example, nowadays the corona is there. Probably in the earlier stage, you might have seen in China, the video, this thing, or American or Italy, people, they were showing some people walking on the street, suddenly they used to fall. Nowadays they are not showing such videos. Because whenever there is a improper anoxia, the brain, if does not get the sufficient oxygen, suddenly the person may fall. When suddenly the person may fall, at that time we have to do the CPR. Because such circumstances you will come across in your life many times. For example, if you go to the temples, sometimes the inside the temple, the small room is there. Inside the temple, very small room. If so many people, about 10 to 15 people enter inside, they get suffocated. Suddenly they say, I'm getting headache. Suddenly some people may become unconscious. At that time, because the respiration is going to be stopped, so immediately if you do the CPR, another one, what we say, sprinkle the water on the face area. Probably you might have seen this one. We sprinkle the water not on the chest area, we sprinkle on the face area. Probably you may be knowing this one, because whenever the person becomes unconscious, suddenly they sprinkle the water on the face. Why we should sprinkle the water on the face? Why not on the other parts of the body? It is a simple thing. There are 12 pairs of the nerves which are coming from the brain. 12 nerves are what we call as the cranial nerves. Out of the 12, 7 pairs of the cranial nerves are supplying the face area. So when you sprinkle the water, we are not pouring the water, you are sprinkling the water. When you sprinkle the water, all the 7 pairs of the nerves are stimulated at once. When all the 7 nerves are stimulated at once, because this side 7, this side 17, 14 nerves are stimulated at once, so suddenly the brain, it starts responding. To see the response of the patient, there are certain things to be noted, whether the person is conscious or not conscious, how to identify. One, we say alertness, whether the person is alert. For example, what we have to do is shout. For example, if you know the name, then you shout, hey Shankar, Shankar, like that you have to shout. If he responds, means he is listening. If he is not responding, that is not listening. So shout and then pinch. You have to give a pinch or anything like that, or painful stimuli. So sometimes we press in this area, sometimes we press in this area, sometimes we put a needle in the leg area, like that we will be doing. Or a pin on the lateral side of the toes or fingers. When you pain, that is induce the pain. If the person is induced the pain, then if he responds or then squeezes his mouth, face or anything, that means he is conscious. Otherwise he is not conscious. So one, we have to see the alertness. Second, we have to see the pain. Like this, you have to come to the conclusion whether he is a conscious or unconscious, whether he is breathing or not breathing, his circulation is there or not there. At that time you have to decide this CPR, when to give, how to give. So this is how we have to give the CPR. Once again to repeat, because this is that on the table we don't do. Usually we are doing on the floor area. For example, if the children are here, for example, if you press like this one, the amount of the pressure is more here. The same amount of the pressure if you put on the chest of the child, suddenly if it is living, it is 100% going to die. So at that time what we use the thumb. So in the same line, we here, what we do, we press with the thumb. We will not use the hand. Otherwise we use the 3 fingers, whichever convenient to you. Either you can use the 3 fingers or the thumb. So even if your thumb, even if you press on the rib area also, nothing will happen to the child. Remember this one, because they are cartilaginous, still they are not well developed, so the bones will not break in case of children. Because sometimes most of the people, because in the 5th intercostal space the apex of the heart is there, some people will do only on the 5th intercostal space also. Usually the better 3 fingers in the children, particularly in case of children, depending upon the age of the child. For example, 5-year, 6-year child, you can use 3 fingers. If less than 5 years, then you can use the 1 finger. Because the children also, same the artificial respiration, the same way you can give, because there is no change in the anatomy of the child or the adult. The same anatomy will be there. So same thing you have to do in the child. How much of time you can continue? Because sometimes some people will say, the CPR I have done for sir for 2 hours, 3 hours. This is all total useless. Because once 7 minutes is over, if the brain is not getting blood supply, the cells are going to die. So whatever you have to do, the maximum what you can do is for 7 minutes or 10 minutes, not more than that. But some people, what we have seen, because in some cases they say, sir, for 10 hours I have done CPR. 10 hours there is no, point in doing the CPR. Nobody can do it. Because only what we say, 5 cycles. The result will be there within 5 cycles. If the 5 cycles are not there, repeat 5 cycles more or one more 5 cycles. 15 cycles, not more than 15 cycles. Because 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 6 minutes. Only 6 minutes you have to do, because the rest of the things, if they are doing more, I think that is a waste of labor. That is not needed. Only you can repeat for 3 times, that is 3 cycle. 1 cycle, 2, blowing of the air, then the 30 compressions, repeat for 5 times, that is a 1 cycle, 1 total this thing, unit. Like that 3 times you can do it. After 3 times, I hope there is no this thing. But some doctors, what we have seen, in spite of even after half an hour also, sometimes they will be doing with thinking that once again he may survive. Even if you survives also, the brain will not be functioning properly. At that time, it may be difficult. So apart from this one, there is one more, that is a AED. Because in India, usually we don't have the AEDs in our centers. That is automatic external defibrillator. Automatic external defibrillation. Whenever the heart it goes into fibrillation, because 70 times it is beating, suddenly it goes to 100 times, 200 times. When it is beating 100 times and 200 times, that's what we call as a fibrillation, atrial fibrillation or ventricular fibrillation. When it goes like that one, so at that time we cannot do anything externally. By this maneuver, we cannot do anything. At that time, the device is available that cost about some more than 1 lakh rupees it costs. There are 2, this thing is there, flaps are there. One you have to keep on the right side, another you have to keep on the left side. You have to press it. Suddenly the defibrillation which is there, it stops. The heart becomes normal and the person will become all right. In most of the Western countries, in almost all the shops, the AED is kept outside the shop. Entrance they keep there, because anybody requires, suddenly they can go there and they can use that AED. But in India, still, because we don't have sufficient AEDs here, in some of the malls and other places, the AED are kept, because if you don't know how to operate, because all the operation which is there, it will repeat. For example, if you make on, it will say, put this particular flank on this side, another this thing on that side, like that it will be saying, and when you are keeping that one, the electric current will be there, so you have to stop, because it will say, don't touch the patient. When it asks to touch the patient, at that time you have to do. If the 1 person is there here, if the 2 persons are there, because it is you will be exhausted. If you do 1 cycle, you will be exhausted totally. Because I don't know, some doctors they write that they have done half an hour for CPR for 1 patient, because in my I mean, experience what I say. To repeat 5 times, we will be exhausted totally. We cannot do on the 6th item. That's why if the 2 persons are there, so one after another, they can repeat. If the 2 persons are there, what we say, the mouth-to-mouth breathing, you can double it. Instead of 2, you can make it 4. Instead of 30, you can make 15. 2 breathing, 15 this thing, 2 breathing, 15 this means if there are 2 people. If 1 is there, 2:30 is the ratio. If 2 are there, 2:15 is the ratio. That can also be done if the more number is there. I hope with this maneuver, we may save the patient. I cannot say 100% because most of the people, they respond with the CPR, because in my observation, even in my clinics, in my hospital, we have saved so many people like this by doing CPR, simple. For example, when we give injection, suddenly the patient will become unconscious. At that time, we don't have anything there, available anything, no ambu bag, no this thing, ventilator. At that time, suddenly we do the CPR and the person will be. Usually in the hospital, what we do, if you don't have time for the CPR, then we have to call as a thumping, is another procedure. It is a crude method. Even though it is a crude method, sometimes it helps into restore of the life. So what is that one? Suddenly you have to hit the chest area. When you hit area, suddenly the heart starts. In the practical experience, I am saying it is not given in the most of the books. In my clinic, what sometimes when patient become unconscious after giving injection or something, at that suddenly we give a blow on the chest area. When you do give the blow on the chest, suddenly they will say, and once again the respiration and circulation starts. So it is a practical aspect is there, that is called as a thumping. Thumping in another way of CPR. But usually this is not practiced because this is a crude method, because when you hit, it doesn't look nice. Because sometimes we have to do, because one of my patient, once he got obstructed, because when he was eating, bone, suddenly when he was about 70 years old, when he was doing, suddenly stuck into the throat area. At that time, what to do? Because all eyeballs rolled up. He was not able to respire. At that time, suddenly called me. I went there and saw he was eating and everything was not there. One, that is the hit on the nape of the neck. When we, gave this thing here, suddenly the bone came and he was breathing. The simple techniques are there. Sometimes that is how. There are so many methods are there. One is the blow on the nape of the neck, another blow on the abdominal area. That also can be done. Suddenly if you, this thing, because whenever the air passage is not obstructed, at that time you have to do this one. Because the observation of the air passage is a must. Because if you don't observe the air passage, because sometimes when they fall in the mud, particularly in the cement factories and other people, when they fall, suddenly the cement will go inside, and because of the moisture of the saliva, it will become very hard, and unless until we remove that cement from the mouth, we cannot save because once in the cement factory it was happened like that. When the person fall, the cement went inside the mouth and it was obstruction. So when we removed the cement, and he was all right. So like this, I hope this CPR, each and every person should know. Whenever the opportunity comes, at that time you should use this technique and save the life. Once again, I will show how to do while sitting. If it is a spring cot is there, when you are pressing like this one, the mechanism of the cot is not, this is a hard surface we have to use, hard surface. Like in a hospital, if the cot is there, it is a spring cot is there, we should not use this particular maneuver. So generally, how to sit? You have to sit on the knee. So like this, straight, about 5 inches. 5 inches from the body. This is the way to sit. Okay? Because the cots and the tables are not available whenever your patient is there. At that time, you have to do like this one. So now, you have seen the airway, you have seen the breathing, then you have seen the circulation, nothing is there. At that time, what you have to do? First, you start with respiration. You have to give that what we call, we call as a kiss of life. This is called as another way, it is called as the life. We are giving it the life by the blowing the air. So, turn the chin and blow the air. Like this, 2. Okay? Then, 2 notches, center, press here, do this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 30 times. So if you follow this particular procedure, it's very easy, comfortable, and you can do it well. Because whenever the spring cot is there, or Dunlop, bed is there, on that one you should not do CPR. That's why all the, such patients, we make them to lie down on the floor and we'll do this work. So whenever you are doing, you have to do on the floor, it is better. Don't do on the spring cot, don't do on the Dunlop bed. Because if you do on that Dunlop bed, when you push, the bed is also pushed, and how much of pressure you are applying, you may not be able to judge. That's why usually this is done on the floor. In some hospitals, we do on the bed. The bed, if it is hard, if it is soft, it is the CPR will not work properly. So this you remember. So like this you have to do. So this is kneeling. Why we do kneel here? The pressure applied and the hands must be straight. Hands must be straight. You should not do like this bend. For example, this is not the technique. So this is not the technique. Always it must be right angle, straight down. The hands must be straight. So many people, what they will do, the patient will be here and they will be sitting here, they will be doing 1, 2. So you are not putting the proper pressure on it one. So always your hands must be straight, straight like this. So you have to do in this way. Understood? I hope in future you practice it. Thank you.
Friends, in this audio-visual series of lectures and demonstrations, in first video, Dr. Mallarao Malle sir has demonstrated cardiopulmonary resuscitation. In continuation with previous video, we are presenting our second video of newborn resuscitation presented by Dr. Gachimani NG sir. Dr. Gachimani sir is ex-professor and HOD, Department of Pediatrics, MR Medical College, Kalburgi. Sir was District President of Indian Academy of Pediatricians and sir is a Senior Pediatric Consultant at Kalburgi.
So today I am going to speak about the newer recommendations for resuscitation for newborn baby. So first of all, we should know what is resuscitation. Resuscitation is a maneuver or the steps taken to initiate the breathing in a newborn baby. That's what we call resuscitation. So why a baby needs resuscitation? Any baby, once it is born, it should start crying within 2 to 3 minutes of life. If the child doesn't cry within 2 to 3 minutes of life, child will enter into something called birth asphyxia. That means child is not breathing and and if the child doesn't breathe within 1 or 2 minutes of birth, the vital organs like brain, heart and kidney are going to suffer from an anoxic insult, and especially the anoxic insult suffered by the brain of the child is going to give a long term disability, and sometimes there can be a mortality also. So once if the child doesn't cry within 1 or 2 minutes of life, the brain is going to suffer from something called hypoxic ischemic injury. Thereby there will be permanent damage to the brain. Thereby the child is going to remain mentally and physically retarded throughout the life, or sometimes with few cases they may die after birth also. So that is the reason why, if the child doesn't cry within 1 or 2 minutes of life, we have to take steps, and those steps we call it as a resuscitation. No? So what are the steps to be taken once the child is born is a very important issue. Nearly 90% of the newborn babies, they don't require any resuscitation after birth. Only 10% of the babies, they don't cry immediately after birth. The meaning of cry is that child has started breathing. If child has cried immediately after birth, that means child has started taking the breathing. So this should happen within 1 or 2 minutes, and if doesn't cry, what we call it as a birth asphyxia. Nearly 90% of the newborn babies, they don't require any assistance. As soon as child is born, child is very active, child is crying, and child has got a normal heart rate. If the child is crying, child has got a normal weight. That's also a very important thing. If the child has got a normal weight like a 2.5 kg plus, and child is vigorously throwing the limbs, and child's heart rate is more than 100, that means the child is breathing well and it does not require any sort of resuscitation. This baby, just you have to do the initial steps and all what all to be done, and baby to be handed over to the mother. Only 10% of the babies, they require neonatal resuscitation. Those 10% babies, you have to be very alert. And what we call how to assess whether child has gone into birth asphyxia or not. You might have heard of Apgar score, where we take into account the respiration, the heart rate, the color of the baby, and the movement of the limbs and the reflexes. All these things are taken into account to know how much the child has suffered from the birth asphyxia. So usually the score, the total score for all these 5 parameters, it comes to 10. If the child's Apgar score is between 8 and 10, that means child is has not suffered from birth asphyxia. If the Apgar score is between 5 and 7, child has suffered from moderate birth asphyxia. If the Apgar score is below 5, that means child has suffered from a severe birth asphyxia. This is how we classify the asphyxia, by grading whether it is a mild, moderate or severe. Severe is where the Apgar score is below 5. So these are the, see, the Apgar score is done twice, once at 1 minute of life, and that is done at 5 minutes of life. The Apgar score done at 1 minute of the life indicates what are the measures to be taken to make the child breathe. No, that what the Apgar score indicates, which is done at 1 minute. The Apgar score done at 5 minutes, it indicates the final outcome of the baby. Whether the baby is going to be a normal baby or baby is going to be mentally and physically retarded throughout life. The Apgar score at 5 minutes, it speaks of the future outcome of the baby. So that is the importance of doing Apgar score. So that is every baby you have to do that Apgar score, and we have to start the resuscitation. Now coming to what are the resuscitation to be done. Before that, we should, once we one person, when all deliveries when they are taking place, one person should be always there to take care of the resuscitation of a newborn baby. He should be expert, or he should have the knowledge of all the steps to be taken. We don't know which baby is going to suffer from birth asphyxia. So every time we have to be ready with in the labor room to take care of this birth asphyxia. So what we should do when we go into labor room to attend a delivery, you should ask what are the any risk factor in the mother, whether it is a preterm delivery or there is a amniotic fluid is meconium stained, or if there is abnormal presentation, the abnormal presentation of the fetus in the baby, is it a breech presentation or a transverse lie? Normal presentation is vertex presentation, that means child's head will be down, and there the chances of birth asphyxia are very less. If there is a history of like a breech presentation or transverse lie, the chances of birth asphyxia are ready, and the person who is going to attend the baby soon after birth, you should be very alert and ready to face that birth asphyxiated child. So these points to be asked to the gynecologist, any risk factor is there in the mother and before the delivery, so that you will be mentally and prepared to face the consequences. So that is how you used to find out once we enter into this one. Okay, then first 60 seconds, the first 1 minute, what all we assess and take the measures, that first 160 seconds is called golden time of the baby. You can call it as a golden hour or a golden minute, because this is the time we have to make the child cry so that child doesn't suffer from permanent damage to the brain, and child is going to mental retarded. If we take all the mental retarded children in our country, nearly 20% of the mentally retarded babies are because of the birth asphyxia. That means 20% of the mentally retarded can be prevented if proper resuscitation is done at the time of birth. So this is the biggest burden on the society, on the government, to take care of this mentally and physically handicapped babies, where if you are very alert, you can prevent this mental retarded babies being born. So that is the importance of doing birth asphyxia. There is importance of being there in the labor room to face all these things, because we have to do everything in minutes and seconds. And if this is prolonged, the asphyxia is prolonged, child doesn't cry for 5 minutes, 10 minutes or half an hour, we come across in day-to-day practice with the babies totally physically, mentally retarded. No, child will not be able to hold the head, child is not able to sit as per this one, child is not able to walk, and will be mentally very much retarded. In fact, even we have seen babies at 10 years not able to walk, not able to recognize, not able to talk. These are all the consequences can be prevented if you do the resuscitation on time. So now I am going to tell you what are all the measures to be done as soon as the child is born to take care of these resuscitation steps. What is important is child, once as soon as the child is born, child is totally wet, and the child is and is exposed to the environment where from a higher environment. We are all warm-blooded people. When child is born, child is suddenly exposed to environment, and there will be hypothermia, sudden fall in the temperature of the body baby. So that becomes a biggest hindrance for initiation of the breathing, hypothermia. So as soon as the child is born, the first duty is to dry the child with a warm towel. Warm towel means a towel which you have kept on a sterilizer, and that gets warmed up, and you can dry up the baby and clean thoroughly. And you can, some people, if there is facilities there, as soon as the baby is born, it can be taken into a warmer if it's available. Otherwise, where we are situation where you don't have warmer, immediately dry the child. That is the first thing you have to do. Then the drying the child, then positioning the child. What is the meaning of position? You have the head of the position, head of the baby should be in a sneezing position. What is the meaning of sneezing? When we try to sneeze, we slightly raise our head. No, that is called sneezing position. Now I am going to show the steps of resuscitation. See, every step, after every step, rather I can say every 30 seconds, you have to keep on reviving the condition of the baby. What all you have to check at the end, every 30 seconds, you have to look at the heart rate, you have to look at the color of the baby, and you have to look at the respiration. These are things we have to keep on doing every time. See, okay, the heart rate itself, if you count for 1 minute, it takes a lot of time. Because the time is so short, so we have to count the pulse of the baby, either pulse of the baby, or you can see the pulse in the umbilical cord, or you can, the other what you can do is, if I got stress, you can count the heart rate. So you should not count for 1 full minute. Count for 6 seconds and multiply by 10, and you get how much is the heart rate of the baby. That's how you can minimize and you can keep on this one. And the other thing I was telling you about the color of the baby. Best thing is to, if you have got oxygen saturation pulse oximeter, you can put a pulse oximeter to the baby and keep on monitoring what has happened to the SpO2 or the oxygen concentration in the body. So these are things to be done. Okay, now let me start the steps of resuscitation. As soon as the child is born, child should be dried up with a warm towel, and the whole body should be nicely dried up. Then I told you the head of the position should be slightly extended, that what you call sneezing breathing. This we call it as the shoulder blade, and its diameter should be like 2 to 2.5 centimeter. It should be this one. That means if you keep this much, there will be slight extension baby. By doing this, the nose, throat and the trachea will come in one line. So it becomes easy to do the resuscitation. This is what we call it as positioning the baby. As soon as child position baby, you have to clean the throat, then the nose. You should never clean the nose first, then throat, because if there are any secretions in the throat, by stimulating the nose, the secretion can be aspirated. So always first you have to aspirate the oral cavity, then you aspirate the secretion from the nose. That's how you do. Most of the baby, I told you, just 90% of the baby, they start crying and their heart rate is normal, and the color of the baby normal. So these are babies, they don't require shift the baby to mother side, and that's how the steps should be. So this is the initial step you are going to do. And what is most important in resuscitation is what has happened to the heart rate of the baby. The heart rate of the baby is 100 or more than 100, then but the child is not still breathing, then you have to go for a positive pressure ventilation. That's positive pressure. There you have got to use the instrument called AmbuVac. Okay. So this you are doing when the heart rate is 100 and child is not breathing. Go for use of positive pressure ventilation. Positive pressure ventilation. So this, for that you are going to use the AmbuVac. So what is this AmbuVac? AmbuVac is an instrument where you can ventilate the baby and try in help in opening the alveoli in the lungs. You can make the baby breathe. Okay, that's how you will be assisting the respiration by using this AmbuVac. What is important, you should know what are the different parts of AmbuVac here, because AmbuVac has got 6 to 7 components. Most important is the bag. Now this is a self-inflating bag. When you press, it gets inflated on its own. That is the specialty of this bag. This is a self-inflating bag. When you press and when you leave it, it gets filled up. The other part is the wall, then the baby mask, and you have got two. This one, this is for there. If we take the back portion, there are 2 openings. One opening is for air, the other opening, the small one, you can use it for connecting to oxygen source. Okay. So this, if the oxygen source is not available, so there is no need to put this tube. Then, and there is one more thing. This is called oxygen reservoir. This oxygen reservoir, you can fix it to the this entry of oxygen, and you can apply this oxygen connector, okay, and the oxygen enters into bulb and the remaining oxygen gets stored here. That's why we call it as a oxygen reservoir. Oxygen reservoir. Whenever this bag wants extra oxygen, it will take from here, and that's how this acts as a reservoir. In situations, in most of the situation, you don't have the oxygen source near you during this one. Then you comfortably you can use a atmosphere air that will be sufficient to ventilate the baby. So this will act as a entry for the this one. Once the air enters here, when you press and leave it open, it doesn't come out. Then there is a wall here. This wall, okay, this is the wall, and it has got a one-way wall. When we press, the air enters into the babies through the mask, and when the baby inhales, there is a exit which comes out separately. The exhaled air does not go back into the bag. The exhaled air does not back. You press, the air enters into the baby, and the exhaled air comes into the wall, and there is a different outlet where the exhaled air comes out. So the purpose of the wall is to see that the exhaled air is not rebreathed. The exhaled air contains high concentration of carbon dioxide. Again, if we push the same thing, again it will be going back and it will be not serve our purpose. So the purpose of wall is to allow the oxygen or the air and exhaled air will be passed through the other openings, small openings which are there underneath. Okay, and this is the mask. You have to connect it to the wall. Okay, and ideally we should have, what is that? There are different types of different size types and different sizes of the mask are there. These masks are there. So depending on the weight of the baby, age of the baby, you have to choose these different masks. You have got a different bigger size masks are there for adult. This one, can they show me? So this size is for a newborn baby, and this you can see the mask which you use for the adult people. See the difference. There is a cushion here at the border of the this one, which will minimize the injury to the face and the lip. So now we have got different types of masks where their cushion is there. Some of the masks they don't have cushion. So that is better to use the mask which has got a cushion like this, the cushion which will not injure the face and all. And again, if you see this mask, it is a rounded shape. Now recently we have started getting anatomical mask where it has got the shape of anatomy of this face and nose and all. So these are most ideal because when we fix it to the face and nose of the baby, hardly there will not be any leak of the air from this one. So ideally is to use an anatomical mask rather than using a round shaped mask. This is most ideal. In place situation where this is not available, you can go with that. No, that's how. Then I'll tell you how to use the mask. Okay, how to use this Ambu bag. So why this name Ambu bag has come? It is ambulatory. You can carry anywhere. Even it doesn't require any machine or any current supply, or it doesn't require any oxygen source also. With just what the atmosphere is sufficient to take care. That's why it is ambulatory, very easily you can carry anywhere, and it's really a life-saving instrument. In the earlier days when the Ambu bags were not available, or the mouth-to-mouth breathing was practiced. Mouth-to-mouth breathing was practiced, where child is not breathing, suddenly mouth-to-mouth breathing was practiced. But in cases where the patient is infected, there is a risk to the person who is doing mouth-to-mouth breathing. So this to replace that mouth-to-mouth breathing, this Ambu bag has been introduced, and this is very effective and life-saving. Then how to apply this Ambu bag? So either you can stand by the side of the baby, or you can stand at the head end. You cover both the mouth as well as the nose of the baby and fix the Ambu bag, the mask, with your finger, thumb, like this, the way I am holding, and start doing this one. You see that you see that there is a movement of the chest with every push you give, squeeze you give to the this one. So that's how you have to this one. I told you, if the oxygen source is there, you can connect oxygen source to this thing, and you can use oxygen reserve also. The advantage by using this oxygen source is you are giving 100% oxygen. The oxygen delivered at this point is 100% if the oxygen source is there. It's well and good. Otherwise, atmosphere air, it gives 40 to 60% of the oxygen concentration in absence of this oxygen source. So the advantage of oxygen source is you are getting a high concentration of oxygen at the source. But at the same time, you should remember, if you are bagging a preterm baby and you are giving 100% oxygen, it is it's not very safe, because giving 100% oxygen to preterm baby, it may cause permanent damage to the eye. What you call it as a retinopathy. High concentration of oxygen may cause a damage to the eyes. What you call is a retinopathy of prematurity, where child may land up in the blindness, and also this is one of the, these oxygen toxicity is seen mostly in a preterm baby. Full term baby, no problem. Even higher dose of oxygen is not going to harm the eyes of the baby. So that is how you are doing the this one bagging, and maybe every 5 seconds, 2 beats per 5 seconds. This one can be done, and at the same time you can make out that the movements of the chest you can appreciate. And but at the same time you are keeping a constant. I told you have to assess the baby every 30 seconds. Look at the heart rate. Heart rate is 100 and above, and the child air entry is there, and oxygen saturation has come to normal. That means it really your ambu bagging is helping, and child is going to breathe spontaneously. Okay, this is the one step where you are going for ambu bag. Sometimes after 30 seconds you find that the child is not breathing spontaneously, oxygen saturation is not coming up. No, so this is the, you can get that bigger pulse oximeter. वो भी लाके रखो. This is a mini pulse oximeter. You can fix it to the foot of the baby, and you can keep a watch on the saturation. The problem of using is not that convenient to use a pulse oximeter in a recession baby, because babies are very cold and it takes nearly 3-4 minutes to pick up this oxygen saturation. So best thing is your visual appearance, whether child is looking pink or blue. So on that basis you have to see whether child is cyanosed or child is getting pink. No, if oxygen saturation is there, it's showing, it's well and good. But otherwise you can roughly estimate whether a child, the cyanosis is disappearing or not. Color is becoming from blue to pink. No, then if the child has started breathing well and good, okay, you stop doing the ambu bagging, child starts spontaneously, you can stop your resuscitation at that point. But if you feel that the saturation is not improving, heart rate is going below 100, so that is the situation where you have to go, in addition to ambu bagging, you have to go for a chest compression. So that is the next step. This all has to be done at a very war footing. You should have presence of mind. There should be a sense of hurry without panicky. You should not get panicky. No, if you get panicky when you are doing, child is not crying, you become very panicky, you try to do all that thing, you are likely to do lot of mistakes doing that. So what is important is you should have sense of urgency without panicky, so that you will do the steps very systematically. What is most important is the good outcome of the resuscitation depends upon how systematically, how stepwise you have done. The result depends upon that, whether child has started breathing or not. So it should be very done very meticulously to get the better outcome. Okay. So that situation you require one more person who can do the ambu bagging, the other person will be doing the chest compression. Okay, will you please come here? You can come there. You can do the ambu bagging. You put the fingers properly. Okay, or you can come this side. You leave it. You come here. Come this side. Okay. Hold. ऐसा hold करो. ये finger ऐसा ना. Okay, ऐसा ना. And you are doing. If the child is not, the heart rate is falling below 100, and child is with your positive pressure ventilation by ambu bag, child is sinking, child heart rate is falling, then the next step is to go for a chest compression. Chest compression means you are pressing the heart to pump more, to pump rapid. That is the meaning of chest compression. So where exactly you have to put your fingers or thumb, whatever it is, and do the chest compression. So earlier, okay, so you have to keep your two thumbs side by side in the lower part of the sternum, just below the nipple level. You join the nipple on either side, draw the line. Your finger should be below the nipple line and on the lower part of the sternum, and the baby should be on a hard surface. To get a better effective chest compression, it should not be a cushioned bed, it should be a hard bed, and put your both the thumbs on the either side, hold the babies by the side and do the compression. So earlier the concept was for every 3 compression, 1 breathing was the practice. Nowadays what they say, there should not be any limit. You can go up to 100 compressions, and he can be. There no need to be synchronous between the chest compression and the ventilation. No, you have to keep on doing, up to 100 to 150 per minute, so that once you get a improvement in the oxygen saturation, this is other instrument which can be used for looking for seeing for the oxygen saturation, and this you have to keep on doing. Sometimes if you don't, you may have to require to do this compression for more than even 30 minutes also. You should not wait for 30 minutes. The chances are that child may start improving, in the spontaneous breathing may start and the heart rate may improve. So that is about chest compression. Chest compression, how much finger you have to press down. In a baby, small baby, the newborn baby, the pressure which I put on the thumb, you should go 1 to 1.5 inches down. The pressure I am going to put, or the pressure, the depression I am going to create with my pressure should be 1 to 1.5 inches. That means you are not going to harm the baby also by doing more pressure. So that is the meaning, how much you have to press every time. No, it is 1 to 1.5 inch, and keep on doing this one, and the other man at the head end, he is supporting me in the ventilation. So this is about the chest compression. Most of the babies, they revive, and there is improvement in the heart rate, improvement in the color of the baby, and child may start bleeding. Then you may have a situation, in spite of that, child is not improving, heart rate is going below 60. That is the worst situation, where child requires intubation. Child requires intubation. Intubation is done, what you call this as laryngoscope, and the laryngoscope, before you enter into, once you enter into labor room, you have to check whether the batteries are working, the bulb is working, because last moment time will be so narrow, you should not spend time in searching for a battery, searching for a bulb. And there are 2 different types of blades are there. One is a curved blade and one is straight blade like this. This, for a newborn resuscitation, always you have to use a straight blade. And then you have got ET tubes. Where are ET tubes? Okay. So you have to do the laryngoscope, introduce the ET tube, and what ET tube to be selected. That is very, very important. the size of the ET tube should be such. The size of the ET tube should be such, it should nicely go compact into the trachea, so that there is not any leak from the sides of the baby. Ideally, there are different sizes of ET tubes are there. This is 3.5, you have got a 2.5, 3.5, you have got a 4, 4.5. For a baby, preterm baby, you can go up to 2 to 2.5 diameter. When a full term baby, you can go up to 3 also. So depending on the weight of the baby, you have to choose the right endotracheal tube for effective ventilation. No, so child's heart rate is below 60. No, child is not spontaneous breathing. That's the time where you have to go for a so already the baby is positioned. You have to just put a laryngoscope and visualize and put the ET tube and fix it. You have to fix it again. All those tapes and all, you should be well readily, you should be cut and immediately fix it. And so you don't have an oxygen source in the this one in the labor room. You fix this tube, ET tube, to the ambu bag and keep doing the positive pressure ventilation. No, if you have got ventilator, you can fix it to the CPAP or a ventilator. That's how you can do the resuscitation, and at the same time, this chest compression should continue. No, come on. Okay. So, जाता हो हाँ चलो साइड में फिक्स करो okay, and you do the this one. No, चुप करते जाओ. So when you are doing चलो okay, so when you are doing this chest compression should continue, and simultaneously there should be assessment what has happened to the heart rate. I told you how to count the heart rate only for 6 seconds, multiply by 10 and all. Sometimes if you have got this pulse oximeter is there, you will get both oxygen saturation as well as heart rate. That becomes more convenient. No, that also can be used, and that's how that's the final step you have to go on doing. In spite of this, child is not still now spontaneously not breathing. That may be the situation where you have to give this inotrope. The epinephrine injection 1 in 10,000 dilution is given intravenously. Intravenously, you may get a vein here. If it sometimes it's not possible, umbilical vein or artery is always there. You can immediately push, because you should not spend a lot of time in searching for the vein here. So you can push the same thing in the umbilical nerve. See, this stimulates the heart and increase the force of contraction, this epinephrine. So that you have to do. Sometimes if the child is in shock, very cold extremities, in addition to this, child may require the IV fluids. IV fluids can be given through the peripheral vein or can be given through the umbilicus. So that's on. Sometimes child is born very pale. You can, instead of IV fluids, you can go for a blood transfusion also. All these things, they will help in again regain this. All these things should, I told you, there should be sense of urgency without panicky. Then only you can do all these steps. Within 5 to 10 minutes, you should finish all these steps and come to this one. No, so that's how you have to see how long we have to do the resuscitation. How long? The question arises. You are doing 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you are stopping in between and trying to see whether child has started spontaneously breathing or not. You have to wait for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. After 30 minutes also, with all your maneuver, child is not spontaneous breathing, you have to raise your hand and say no. No, beyond 30 minutes, any maneuver is not going to help, child is not going to survive. No, so what is important is you have to be very alert, keep on doing these things. And the other possibility where your resuscitation is not helping, if there is a pneumothorax, it is not allowing the chest lungs to expand. If there is a diaphragmatic hernia where all the intestines are in the chest, not allowing the lungs to expand, these are the situations where you find that your resuscitation not at all helping. So you have to keep in mind these possibilities. If there is a bedside X-ray facilities there, you can have a bedside pneumothorax is there, immediately can do a puncture and all those things. These are rare situations you have to keep in mind in situation where there is a failure of your resuscitation. No, where you are doing all these maneuvers, still the child is not surviving. And I was talking about the bicarbonate. See, because if the child doesn't breathe for a longer time, lot of oxygen gets collected. No, so carbon dioxide gets collected in the body. Carbon dioxide is something like an acid. What you call child suffer from acidosis. The pH falls. No, pH falls below 7.2. It falls. These acidotic situations, they are all cardiac depressant. They reduce the contraction of the heart. So once the child starts crying, then you can give sodium bicarbonate 2 to 3 ml per kg body weight. This should not be given before the child starts breathing. It should be given only when the child starts breathing spontaneously. So there is this place is not there. This epinephrine. This. So these are the various steps of resuscitation. Hope you understood. Any problem you can ask me later. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
The procedure of resuscitation in Ayurveda is addressed as Prana Pratyagamana. The third video of the series of Prana Pratyagamana according to the ancient method, that is Ayurveda, will be uploaded shortly. Thank you.